right. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jasmine Pogue. I am head of customer success and sales with SkillType. It is the library talent platform. Um, and I am so excited to be here with you today here in Boston. I am joined by Janelle Gee, Director of Client Engagement at Electives, Vasilius Alexiou, Head of Product and Customer Success at Swaybase, Karina Bassetta, Director of Customer Advocacy at Podium, and Joelle Rosado, Senior UX Researcher at Splash. So to introduce myself, I said I am Head of Sales and Customer Success at SkillType, the library talent platform. We help libraries make informed decisions around retaining, reskilling, and recruiting staff based on data. So we are headquartered in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with a satellite office here in Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm excited to be here representing the startup market in Boston. So now we will get to our panelists and their introductions and the questions you really want to know about customer success. So I'm going to start with who I see on my screen first, and then we'll go through each person. This is the only time we'll be very formal. This is meant to be an informal conversation. So any one of you on the panel, if you have a question or an answer you want to talk, just wave your hand and I'll call on you next as I go through the questions. So first, I see Vasilius, if you want to go ahead and share a little bit about yourself, what you do with your company, and maybe share where your company currently is in the customer success journey.
Sure. Thanks, Jasmine. Hi, everyone. I'm Vasilios Alexiou with Swaybase. We are based in Boston, but we're a fully remote team with folks various places around the world. Our product helps companies reach and influence all of the decision makers that are connected to their employees at the company. So think of it as a word of mouth engine, so to speak. In terms of where we're at in our customer success journey, this might be similar to what other folks might say, but we were very high touch the last several years, and we're starting to transition more into a sort of a self-serve, product-led customer success approach.
Thank you. Janelle?
Hey everyone, my name is Janelle Gee. I use the she, her pronouns, and I'm Director of Client Engagement at Electives. We too are a Boston-based startup. A handful of us are in the city, but fully remote team across the US and even global. We are a live learning and development platform, and we like to say changing the way people learn and develop at work, otherwise known as training people will love from people they'll never forget. And we are too, very similar to Vasilios, fairly new on our journey. I would like to say we're in a very consultative white glove environment right now, where we take every piece of feedback from our customers so seriously, so diligent, really are intertwining every little node into our product that is ever changing and developing. So a little bit about us, we're just 2 years in, and really working quite often with HR, DE&I, people ops, and L&D leaders to make the best match with teachers and topics to help develop their people.
Thank you. Karina?
Hey everybody, my name is Karina, and I lead customer advocacy at Podium. Podium is a communications and payments platform that really focuses on small business owners. So we're headquartered in Utah, and I oversee operations, engagement, and planning for a product support organization. It's really kind of funny to echo what Janelle and Vasilios just said. Initially I was brought in to build out the customer success motion. But in the last 6 months, we've really accelerated our product-led growth initiative. So a lot of product support, self-service knowledge, and really in-product experiences. And I would say that to kind of mirror what everybody else said, right now our customer journey is really being re-envisioned. So we want to become the one-stop shop for small business owners. So a platform that really does everything for them: communications, payment, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of our customer success right now journey is around being mapping it out, tweaking it, and updating it. We really want to make sure that our customers have the best experience from first engagement and contact through sales, through the onboarding experiences. So yeah, definitely being re-envisioned.
All right. And Joelle?
I'm Joel Rosado. I lead research at Splash, which is we're remote based as well. And our sort of purpose is helping companies build and scale their event programming. And in our current customer success journey, we're relatively mature, but and I think the way we're trying to move success is from being more of a support focused role, which sometimes success gets caught up in, to being more renewal focused and relationship focused.
So there's so much, everything that all of you have shared. I'm thinking about my own customer success team and where we're going and how we're doing. There's so many questions that I have that I want to ask all of you. And I'm sure that all of you that are here today and all of you that are tuning in virtually have so many questions around customer success. One of the things that I want to tap on, especially because I wear the hat of head of sales and head of customer success, one of the things that I want to dive into, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say, because this is often a challenge, is sales tends to overpromise at times. And once it gets to the customer success team, it can be a bit of a challenge. So let me put my head of sales hat to the side for just a moment. But let's talk about designing a successful pathway for our customers, starting with the sales handoff. What does a positive user experience look like with the sales and account management teams at your company? Whoever wants to share first, what does that pathway look like for your company? Yeah, Karina.
Sure. I mean, look, we've all had our experiences with sales teams. Some are really good, some are mixed bags, but I love working with sales. Some of my strongest relationships have to be with sales because honestly, it's that relationship is key, right? I like to describe it kind of like the Lion King. It's like the circle of life. If and whenever like I start a new role or a new initiative, I always make sure that I fold in the sales point of view because you have to work so closely with them, right? So at Podium for us, and more recently, we feel that the best customer experience really starts at the sales and the onboarding experience. So we have really incentivize our sales teams to be really engaged because we want to make sure that the product remains sticky, that the customers are really excited and happy, and whatever they heard as part of the sales journey is exactly what's going to happen in the post-sales experience. So we've actually built that onboarding experience with a direct handoff from sales. So there's really no separation. You sold the deal. We expect an introduction and a background for that customer. So from the get-go, there's no surprises. And really that user experience has to be super positive, that it has to be like seamless. It's got to be fast, and it really has to be very, very engaging. So love my sales team members quite a bit.
Yeah, go ahead, Vasilios.
Yeah, so I'll chime in. We have actually a little bit of an unorthodox approach to sales because we actually don't have a sales team. We used to, in the first several years, have a small sales team, which actually drove pretty much all of our deals. And they brought in enterprise clients who are mostly still with us today, actually. But as I mentioned earlier, our transition is it's very much to go away from that sort of enterprise, high touch, white glove experience into something a bit more product focused. And so for us, we've started to think of our target market as not everyone out there or the ICP that might be out there in the world that we have yet to reach, but rather our current customer base and the people that they're connected to. It's actually kind of meta because that's what we help our customers do with our product. But for us, that's our target market, so to speak. First, our customer base, which is hundreds of thousands of users, and then outside of that, the people that they're connected to, which is millions of people. And that's where we focus. So the way we do that is through the product itself, word of mouth. And when we see people actually starting to use the product, and we have some criteria there, that's when we start to reach out from the customer success side to help them become even more successful with the product, to become deeper on some of the features, to test out new features, to get their feedback. So that's where the customer success is essentially our sales, even though I said we don't really have a sales team. So it's a little bit unorthodox, but I thought that's another sort of perspective on this.
That does sound unorthodox, but I'm very curious about that one. And when we start talking about scale, it sounds like even though you have a hands-on experience, I think that's what you mentioned earlier, that you have that hands-on experience on the customer success side. It sounds like your company has found a way to still scale with the customer base. So I'm really curious to see your experience with that when we start to talk about that a little bit later on in the conversation. And Karina, I love how you mentioned about incentivizing the sales team to ensure that the customer remains sticky. So that way they're not just over promising with each customer that they come across, but they are also they're knowing what the product is. And so they're promising exactly what the product is, and they're bringing to the customer success team a good customer and not someone who's expecting something more. Anyone else want to share?
I'm happy to jump in, and I think our model is very similar to Karina's, but so much of what both you just shared resonates. I personally don't love like handoff. And so if we're using hands as the analogy here, I think of either handshake or a high five. So when I'm working with our sales team, we are literally all in this together. And I love the circle of life analogy, Karina. We have weekly calls with our sales team. We're talking about strategies or customers that are top of mind, about to close. We're brainstorming, talking through proposals. It is a very close-knit group, and I really appreciate that diligence, because if we are letting our customers down, in fact, we're actually letting one another down. And so I think we've built this really like tight-knit community between our CS and sales team. And that's what makes me so proud, is that I know what our sales team is delivering is what we can also deliver on the CS side. So we leverage HubSpot as our CRM. There are very diligent tasks that must be completed before there is a handshake or a high five over to the CS team, which includes getting as much context as possible. I also heard earlier, seamless is 100% spot on. We don't want our customers to have to repeat themselves multiple times and like, hey, I told so-and-so this, and now I'm having to share it with you again. You know, all of our information is stored in one place, and we have that backlog of what was their original pain point and what solution can we help them with. So all to say, really enjoy working with our sales team, and it's a really great partnership between both sides. And I think that has to be the case in order to deliver what our customers need.
Yeah, that's what's really special about working with a startup, is you get to work with the different teams so closely. You know, you can't do that in a corporation. In a startup, you get to work with each team so closely. I do know with my team itself, because of the sales team and the customer success team being so close, we do meet all the time. You know, the sales team, the customer success team, that it isn't a handoff. You're right. It is more like a handshake or a high five, and that communication is so close. Matter of fact, I did want to touch in on renewals and retention, because that conversation tends to be, you know, towards the end of the year or however long your contracts tend to be. That conversation is not right away. The customer has been with you for a while. How is that handled at your companies? Do you involve the sales team? Does customer success have full ownership of that relationship? How is that a seamless experience for the customer? And this is open to everyone. At my company, sales handles the renewal, while customer success handles that relationship. So to Janelle's point, it is more like a continued handshake, or, you know, you keep coming back for that handshake. So it's never really a full handoff. Anyone want to share on that? How are renewals and retention handled at your company?
I'm happy to jump in. For us, renewals and retention are primarily handled by expansion, retention teams, and strategic customer success teams. I would say that this is probably one of the areas or themes that are a largest opportunity for all of us in the upcoming year. We rely heavily on in-app experiences and automations within the platform right now, but I do think that in the next year, we'll have to increase our focus in this area. So I'm kind of curious to see how everybody else handles this.
Yeah, this is Vasilios from Swaybase. Customer success for sure, and it's only recently have we, as I've been mentioning, starting to get some of the smaller customers on maybe monthly plans or sometimes on annual plans. But the bulk of our revenue is still from those bigger customers who have annual plans, and that's customer success 100%.
CS fully manages renewals, and retention is one of our major KPIs that we're measuring on a monthly basis if clients are re-engaging with us. And I would say that our sales team is somewhat involved, but it's really what's going to benefit the customer. And I think that is primarily driven from our CS team. They understand the pain points. They can review survey feedback. They know our point of contacts better than anyone. I like to say in some ways our CS team serves as a friend to our buyers. There's someone that they can lean on. We can be their first call when something comes up or something they want to discuss at work or a tricky topic, something happens in the US that they need to hold a courageous conversation on. And so we want to be that first call on their side. All to say, I think the process that we're working on right now is that CS re-engages, and we're really just trying to solve for next year's pain points and try and get ahead of that. All to say, if there was something that the sales team might have, a nugget or of knowledge that they acquired very early on, we will certainly bring them in if that's beneficial to have a familiar face on the line and have a conversation there. But more often than not, it is our CSMs renewing the partnership, which is all fairly seamless because it never actually feels like a true sale or re-engagement. It's, again, trying to solve next year's pain point ahead of time.
Yeah, I think that there's there's that challenge between bringing in whether or not to bring in sales on that renewal, because it is kind of sales driven, right? When it comes to renewals, because it is revenue driven. But customer success does know that relationship. They own that relationship. They also have access to things that sales never had access to, which are surveys, continuous conversations with the customer, just so many more tools that sales just doesn't have when it comes to closing the sale itself, like the initial sale. And so building on that relationship, customer success just has a very intimate knowledge into that. So it's really good to see. I love to hear those different ways. And then also with what Vasilios was saying into building and supporting those smaller customers, because so many startups rely on those larger enterprise level contracts, but then you kind of leave those smaller ones behind and never know, like, okay, well, how do we scale in and bring those smaller ones in there? I kind of want to shift the conversation into talking about scaling and broadening out the product and how customer success can feed into supporting all different types of customers. It is really difficult for us to start leaving that hands-on experience. I know firsthand it's really difficult to leave that behind. Is probably one of the most difficult transitions. But we are also used to using technology, right? All of our products are technology based. And at some point it is time to let go of the face-to-face interactions that we have with our customers, and it's time to begin leveraging technology to scale those interactions with more and more customers, and not just those enterprise customers. So talk about how you're using technology, maybe your technology or otherwise, at your company with those customer interactions. So anyone who wants to share, you can wave your hand or unmute yourself and just jump right in. I know it's a challenge at my company as we're trying to figure out different ways to grab on to all different levels of customers that we can reach out to, because we know, and I'm sure you know too, that your product is one that others can use, not just the type of customer that you're currently selling into today.
I'm happy to start the conversation on this one. I think the notion that technology solves it all is a fallacy. I think there's always room for human interaction and engagement and mapping out. Like, at the end of the day, we're working with humans, and you really have to go back to basics about, what makes people tick. For us, our customers are, small business owner, mom and pop shop owners, plumbers, electricians, real estate workers, et cetera. So we have to be really cognizant of just kind of the way that we use our language to interact with customers. So we have to map out everything, like get in their shoes, like what does their day-to-day look like? They're really busy. They're likely not going to be responding to 9 to 5, but you actually see yourself having interactions with them, leveraging technology before 9 o'clock, right? A plumber might start the day at 7 o'clock or whatever it might be. So for us, it's really thinking about how our end user would use our platform. The other thing that I'm thinking of as we continue to map out how our existing technology and new existing, technology we'll be using, everybody here is probably leveraging in-app usage and predictive analytics to see what the next thing will be, or what is the one sticky thing within your product that folks are really using. So for us, it's really going back to basics, mapping it out from the get-go and using as many of our existing tools to sort of interact with our customers, but also make it very human.
I'm happy to build off that a little bit, because Karina, what you just shared to the human element, I think there are some things that humans are really good at solving, and there are some things that tech is really good at solving, or a product is really good at solving, right? And one example for how we leverage our product with our customers is really through sharing recommendations. So just for context, on our platform, we have nearly 400 different topics and classes that we offer, over almost 200 teachers. And so for someone to come to our training catalog and take a look, it's like, whoa, there's way too much. How do I even narrow this down? How do I make the best match for my company? What will my people like? How do I know that this is what I want to achieve, or this is what I'm hoping to achieve? And so we narrow down 400 different classes, 200 teachers, and really give them maybe 5 to 7 options. And we really focus on why we are preparing that for them. And this is shared through our product. We share recommendations right to our customers' emails. They can review them, come back into our platform. They can share it with their colleagues, like, hey, I'm thinking that this class might be a great fit, specifically for ERG leaders who are hoping to host programming for their underrepresented community. They can share them with co-leads or other folks in the organization. And so while we leverage the tech, there is always a CSM or a CST member to be the safety net, to provide that additional context. So if there's any football fans on the line, or folks who are familiar, I like to think that we serve, or our product serves as somewhat of the quarterback, while the CS team is the wide receiver. We can run the ball, we can get it down, but we ultimately need the product to get it all the way to the finish line, or to make the farthest toss. All to say, it's a combination of the two right now, where we are still very consultative and maybe white glove, fully transitioning to a deeper focus on leveraging our product and more features.
Janelle, you're bringing me back home to Louisiana with that football, bringing football into this. But I think that you and Karina are bringing in really good points, talking about making sure that, one, the human aspect always has to be there. Otherwise, we would not have customer success teams. Let's be completely honest. You know, customer success was created by SaaS companies because they realized that there needed to be a human element to SaaS, right? Like SaaS was created by engineers and they were like, wait, we need some sort of human element that's going to really help us ensure that customers understand our product. And that's why customer success was created. So there needs to be some sort of human element, but the product itself, the technology itself can help to scale and interact with the customer and help to make it easier to reach more and more people. And I'm wondering, I'm trying to remember what it was that Vasilios was saying earlier that made me think about scale, but now it's jumping from my brain. So I don't know if you remember earlier what you were sharing, but I was hoping you could jump in here and share a little bit earlier what you were sharing.
Yeah, basically, I think what might have prompted that thought for you was that I said we don't really have a sales team. It's customer success, waiting for basically product qualified leads. And for us, what that means for scale is, well, we've made the decision to accept lower growth on the top line. And what I mean by growth is logos, being able to say X number of companies, the stuff that sounds really good. Those metrics, we've said, that's fine. We'll take a hit on that as long as we, on the bottom of our funnel, start to increase our conversions and start to get better engagement, better customers, folks who know what they're getting into and are going to get value out of it. And so the way we've done that, as I mentioned earlier a little bit, is we've started to get better at, we still need to improve a lot on this, but started to get better at saying, okay, these are the, I show parentheses in here is we have a very social product. It's about social media and people sharing. So back to what I was saying, these are the folks who are most engaged, very social for their own companies through our product. They might be very good ambassadors for us for the product itself. And might we not engage them to get a testimonial, to get referrals, to actually sometimes have them be the trainers for their own fellow colleagues using the products. So there's things like that, which I know I keep saying we've been trying to be more product-led, but to your point, Jasmine, it's just really hard and somewhat terrifying to completely let go of that human element. It's just, I really do think it's impossible, at least for us. And so the way we make up for that lower growth on the top end is to be able to invest our effort not in spray and pray marketing to get anyone out there who might possibly be interested in our product, but rather, hey, we already have hundreds of thousands of users and there's a subset of them who are really power users. Let's put our efforts into working with them and helping them spread the word about our product and their experience, both within their companies and outside of it. So a little bit of a long-winded answer there, but it's a real ongoing process for us. A little bit terrifying, the transition, but also exciting because we realize, look, this is our market. Let's go after it. And you can sort of wrap your hands around that, your arms around that market if you think about it very kind of narrowly like that.
Wow, that's amazing. That's so amazing. I mean, I'm a little worried because I'm in sales and I never want anyone to say the sales department needs to go. But I think that's still really cool. So I look forward to hearing how that goes for
Jasmine, I'll just add the sales department. I don't think at some point I'm going to come back to probably saying at some point in the next several years, like, look, there's just a point at which you need a sales team to be able to start getting that next level of growth. But for us right now, it's kind of working the way we're going about it. We'll see, to be determined what happens several years out. But I would not be shocked at all if I was starting to look around for really good salespeople and
Yeah.
starting to dip our toes back into that. So I don't want anyone who's sales to feel this sort of like
that this is the newest thing and sales is going away.
yeah.
Yeah. So the next question I wanted to ask everyone, and then I don't know if we have any questions in the audience or anything virtually, but I wanted to ask, what is a question or what is something that you would share with either a company, a startup who's looking to bring on customer success? They think that they need a customer success department or channel or person. Because let's be honest, a lot of people start with one customer success person. I know I was employee number 1 at my company at SkillType. And I was originally hired to do sales. And then they were like, hey, we need customer success. Can you do sales and customer success? And I was like, sure, I could do both. Never did customer success a day in my life, but I was confident I could. And here we are. So what is one thing you would say to someone that's bringing on customer success or they're starting in customer success that they need to know that would probably save them from a lot of heartache, or just one bit of advice you would like to give to someone? I mean, it's not going to save the world, so don't worry. But if you wanted to give somebody a bit of advice, what is one thing that you would want to share with them about supporting customers or just doing customer success in a startup? Anything that just comes to mind that you would want to share with a CEO or a customer success manager, a head of customer success, based on what you've done so far at your company? Karina, I see you took your line off of mute, so you make me want to go to
but
you
I
first.
think Janelle might have been first.
Yes. Oh, I do see Janelle. I do see Janelle too.
Happy to share. What immediately comes to mind for me is getting the right people to match. I think of the CSMs on our team and how critical the relationships they are building with our customers are, and the trust and empathy that they bring to the relationships, and the confidence that I feel knowing that, okay, maybe I'm not on the line with them, but the partner or the client is going to renew with us. And so I think getting the right people that either have experience in former CS roles, depending on the product that you're selling, if they have experience in SaaS, whatever it might be, there is so much of a human element when it comes to being part of a startup. No matter what product you are selling, what product you are marketing, it is humans working with humans. And so at the end of the day, you need to have the right people to be able to do that. And I truly believe that is how success will continue to grow within CS teams. If you have the right team that you can trust one another, collaborate, get rallied behind a goal or a metric that you're chasing, and together that team could be unstoppable.
And just to expand on that a bit more, when you're saying the right people, it sounds like you're saying it's really the interactions you're having internally that's going to spread to how the customer is experiencing the company and the product.
Totally. They have to be well educated on our product, but also there, again, are so many elements of being a caring person, listening with very intentional skills, being able to bring back feedback to our product team and kind of wish list features. Ultimately, I mentioned the idea of being a friend to our clients earlier, and you want someone that you can fully trust to go out there, continue to build relationships, and come back with both a positive and negative feedback that we receive, which hopefully isn't too often, but be willing to share that back for the greater good. I also think someone that can add to a company's culture. I know a handful of our companies are fairly young, and one or two people could potentially disrupt a company's culture if they're starting to grow and things are ever changing. And so you want someone that can be a culture add instead of a culture fit. You don't want the same people that look and sound and all share the same ideas. You want folks to bring diverse perspectives to the table. And I think if you can mirror that on the CS team that is both inward facing to product, to marketing, to sales, also outward facing to our clients, that's a win-win.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because customer success does they do touch literally every department within a company. So that is a great point. Karina.
Yeah, so to kind of backtrack a little bit. So the original question is like, what kind of question would you ask if somebody is looking to bring in or build customer success into an organization? I think there's actually two questions that I would ask. The first one, if it's a founder or leader within a startup, is like, why and why now? Like, what is it that you are trying to do that you aren't able to do now? And why is it now that you need that? Once you have those answers and have like a pretty, it's going to be pretty direct conversations with folks. I am all about curiosity. Like, give me the good, the real bad, and the messy, because then you can sort of build from there. So if there is no product usage, okay, cool. Like, let's talk about why that's happening. So you might actually be able to uncover things that are occurring at an organization without actually having to solve with a CS team, or at least provide you with background and knowledge about how to better create a CS organization.
That is really good. Really good questions to ask to really help a company decide whether or not to bring on customer success. I find that some CEOs just don't know what the customer success channel even does. And then they're just like, okay, this is just customer service. Well, let's just throw you out and
Just
do
throw it
customer
over.
service. And you're just like, no, this is not customer service at all. Joelle or Vasilios, do you want to share? What's your piece of advice?
Go for it, Joel.
Well, yeah, I was just going to mention that I would say the same thing that was mentioned earlier, as far as like figuring out why now, like what problem are you trying to solve by creating this customer success department, and how do you expect to build business off of it? Because yeah, as a leader of a company, I'm sure that's probably the most important thing in your mind is like, how am I building my business? How am I expanding the business? And how will customer success fit into that process? Because if you don't have a clear story about that, then it's going to make it harder for you to justify that to your investors or to other people. It's just going to be harder for you to justify that to yourself. So you really need to be bought into the idea of it.
Yeah, and I'll jump in as well here. There's, I think, there's a lot of skill sets, but two like kind of big areas that I think about a lot with customer success and someone who would excel at it. And one is, are you a teacher? And what I mean by that is my sister's a third grade teacher, and all she does all day long, or one of the main things she does all day long, is take concepts that are not maybe well understood by an audience, breaks them down, translates them, and tries to get those communicated and absorbed and understood by that audience. To me, that sounds an awful lot like what customer success does, and I wouldn't be surprised if at some point I went to my sister and I said, hey, if you ever want to jump ship from teaching, I would hate to do that to her if she loves that, but you're more than welcome to come be customer success with us. So teaching, educating requires a certain skill set, especially upfront with a new customer or a new user. The other part is more of like a product or UX researcher, and this is probably something that's informed by also my purview on product, is when you are in a customer success on a call with someone, and that's sort of the context, and they're giving you feedback. A pure customer success approach might be to take that feedback, run with it, go back to someone in product and tell them, hey, someone asked for this. Well, the next thing that someone who's good at product or at UX is going to be like, well, why did they ask for that? Because what a customer might often lead with is a solution, but that's not really the customer's job, is to give you the solution. It's for them to tell you what the actual so what? Like, what if I have this thing, what am I going to get out of it? Or if I don't have it, what am I not going to get? Yeah. And so that's what you have to really, as good customer success, I think, is going to ask the question 2 or 3 times as a follow-up. So what? Like, why did you ask for that? Why do you need that button there? Why did you ask for that feature? And then you can sort of go back to okay, now I understand your problem. This other thing might be a better way to solve that. I'll take that back and work with my team on that. So someone's the ever popular question. I think Karina just said, "Can we add a button?" That's totally that's exactly what I mean. That I can't tell you how many times I get that question, and it's like, well, why do we want to add a button? Why does that come to mind? So those are the two things: to teach and to ask questions and be a researcher.
Yeah, my product team completely hates whenever I had to learn that one really fast, because my product team would hate when I go into the Slack and I'm like, oh, the customers say blah, 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 blah. And they're just like, okay, I'm tired of ideas. I'm tired of suggestions. Can we just find out why they need this? So that way we will come up with the ideas. Just find out what their pain points are. That's what customer success really needs to find out, is what are the pain points behind what it is that the customer is suggesting. So these are really good, and I hope that everyone found some value in these. I saw a few questions that came up here in the virtual chat, and then I think we have a bit more time in case anyone has any questions. Two questions that I saw come up were, do you have any good book recommendations for the customer success? If there are any training books or source material, knowledge that's out there to guide the company or maybe a customer success manager. Do y'all have any good books? I just said y'all. I apologize. I'm from Louisiana. I tend to say y'all. I know Karina, she's from the South too. So it tends to come out a lot. I say it to customers all the time, and then I have to tell them I'm from Louisiana. It just comes out. I have a really great book recommendation. It's called Customer Success: How Innovative Companies Are Reducing Churn and Growing Recurring Revenue. You can find it in a library. So I have to name drop libraries there, but you can also find it on Amazon. I listened to it on an audiobook. It is so good. Just search for customer success. It's a blue book, and it is amazing. Amazing. If you were a CEO or a head of customer success, you should listen to this book or read this book. I thought it just blew my mind. But anyone else have a good suggestion?
I'd say Diffusion of Innovations. It's probably my favorite book and the one I always recommend, because the topic is basically academic research into like how innovations are adopted, how they're created, and the biggest part is like how they are adopted and what's required for adoption to occur within a population. So yeah, Diffusion of Innovations is what the book's called.
All right. By Everett Rogers, it looks like. Good.
Yeah.
I think I saw Vasilios. Did you have a suggestion? I see Karina. Karina?
Yeah, actually, the one that I would probably recommend has nothing to do, but a lot to do with negotiations, how to get to yes. As CSMs or people that are constantly sort of asking questions regarding value or differentiators, I think knowing what are kind of the key areas to negotiate with the business is super, super crucial. I use it not only in CS, not only in startup world, but even in my personal life. Like knowing how to negotiate to me is top. So getting to yes. Let me see who the author is. Roger Fisher.
And then Janelle said the lean startup and the power of moments and contagious. All right.
Yeah, those are a few recs on our side, and just additional perspective here. So we do like a quarterly book club that's opt-in at our company. And these actually, the Lean Startup was the first book that we read together, probably this time last year. And it's so amazing to like have others kind of dissect how all the information resonates with them. Like my perspective from CS is totally different from the way marketing might look at something versus someone else. And so we try to do a quarterly book club. It's totally opt-in. folks don't have to participate, but very early on, we've got a pretty good showing. And the next book we're going to be digging into, not necessarily CS related, but more of a team building, is the culture code. And so for folks who are looking for something to kind of build community among their organization, I think that's an awesome opportunity for a free way to like engage with one another and build community.
All right.
I've got a few recs. So 2 books and 1 website. So one is How to Pitch Anything. This book is really sales focused, but it can definitely be applied to think about any context where you're literally pitching something like a feature or a renewal or an upsell or whatever. I think it does a really good job of breaking down, how people think, to sort of very viscerally, and how to work with that. The other is Crossing the Chasm. This is about how to actually capture a market and the different stages of users that you have. I think if you can understand which group of users you're targeting, that will naturally lend itself to better customer success, and how you approach them and the market. And then finally, a website that I love, that I've been following for years, is useronboard.com. And this is more product focused, but there is a section on there that has product onboarding teardowns. And it's literally screenshots of how different famous products onboard people, one step at a time, and they critique them. For someone in anyone in product, but also for customer success, I think to see just what it's like for customers to use a product without you being there holding their hand, can be terror inducing. And that's for companies like Apple and like their music product, or Slack, or whatever. There's ways that they can improve. So you can imagine for companies that are maybe smaller like us, there's definitely ways to improve. So that, I think, will give you sort of a little bit into the mindset of a customer who's just using your product for the first time, and how you can help from a customer success perspective and product.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. If you do have a moment to place any of your recommendations in the chat, that would be fantastic. So I do know we have some questions in the chat, but before we do that, I wanted to see if we had any questions live, because I know we are almost out of time. But did we have any questions that anyone wanted to ask? Okay, great. Oh, many questions in the chat. Okay, let me just get to some of these questions in the chat real quick. Oh, okay, let me see. Just give me the Q&A function. Hold on just a second. Let's ask some of these questions.
So you can go between those.
This is like, we only have like, what, 10 more minutes?
Yep.
Okay. I think I'm gonna ask this one right here. Okay. I read this one earlier, so I got it. So one of the questions, and I think this might be the last question that we asked, but customer success is a rather new department or channel, and it's really in the SaaS, field. And so some customers that we are working with may not have ever interacted with a customer success. They may not have ever worked with customer success. How do you handle that? How do you handle them understanding what it is that you do, especially those of them in the enterprise field? How do you handle working with them and them understanding what it is that you do, how to interact with you, how to continue interacting with you, and building that relationship with that customer, and knowing that you're not just customer service, and knowing that you do more than just that, or that your channel does more than just that. So the question was asking, without educating them around customer success, or the approach, customer success can just fall flat. They may not renew, or they may not expand, or there's no growth around that. What are your thoughts around how to educate the customer around customer success.
Karina, I saw you. You might have.
I know.
Go ahead, go for it.
Karina, you got to stop coming off of mute.
I know. I'm gonna stop.
Everyone's like, Karina, go ahead.
Jeopardy. It's like Jeopardy. She's beating us to the punch. For me, it's the best way to tell people what customer success is to show them. And so I can tell them I'm here to help you, but it's much better to actually help them and give them an aha moment up front in the first interaction. And that usually comes by understanding why they signed up. Like that has to be like a real discussion. Like, why are you here? What is the problem? And then actually being able to give them a couple of real tangible next steps to make them feel like they're not alone in the product. That to me is generally better than saying, yeah, here I am, I'm here to help you, and reach out. Here's my email, reach out if you ever have any questions. So I'll stop there.
Karina, you wanted to jump in on that?
Sure. I mean, I think for me, it's really setting the expectations of what you can expect from me as either a CSM, a CS organization, or a CS team, and showing them, to Basilio's point, you want to make sure that you're adding value and that you're just not putting time on their calendars just to catch up. That is the worst use of anybody's time. If anybody ever sends me a meeting that says catch up, I'm like, so what's the agenda? Because I just want to make sure that it's worthy of both of our time. So setting the expectations correctly, sort of mapping out what they can expect. So our first meeting, this is it. Maybe I'll check in if there's anything that comes up. By the way, these are some of the things that I have noticed on your account. Let's catch up. I'd like to walk you through it. Like adding value to conversations. People are busy, and without adding value, you're really not going to make a difference with CS motions.
I saw, did I say Joelle or Janelle?
I was just going to piggyback off Karina. I totally agree. You have to really educate them early on what value you bring, whether that's someone they can lean on, you're going to show them a demo of the platform or the product, or you are going to be their first call when they think of XYZ. What is the trigger that's aligned to the CSM or the CS team member that initiates that email or that phone call or that message? I think the other way I often use in my very first conversations with new clients is, how do you want to be communicated with and when? I know we work with a lot of clients in the Bay Area. I'm in Boston. I might not hear from them till later in the day. Do they want to be connected on Slack? Is it easier for us to just DM one another? Is it easier for us to call and just chat on the phone when they're doing something? Is it easier to set up a Zoom, a Google Meet? And so understanding how folks want to be communicated with, I think, is another element. I've found Slack connects with our buyers or our customers to be super helpful. Again, just like DMing with a quick question or reaching out with, looking for a recommendation, whatever it might be, understanding how they want to be communicated with and when. If it is a totally hands-off relationship and they'll only come back when they need something, that is totally okay. Or if they want to ping weekly, daily, however the cadence might be, it's what works best for the customer, and we adapt. But as long as we create the value very early on that we are a resource and someone they can lean on, I think the rest is in the clear from there.
Oh, this is a really good one. Yes. Did you just put this one up here? This is really good. Especially because with the pandemic, everything is remote, and I don't know for anyone else or anyone else's SaaS company, everything is staying remote. I think every customer interaction, unless you're in sales, maybe some of your interactions have been in person, but how do you build trust if you're working remotely? What are you doing with your customers? How are you interacting with them? I know, Janelle, you were just saying that some of those interactions have been on Slack. But how else are you interacting with your customers? How are you building that trust if you're working remotely?
Yeah, so I mentioned, sorry, I accidentally promoted that. but I can take a stab at it. For us, it's been helpful to be prompt in our replies. It doesn't have to be within like seconds, but to be prompt in our replies and to clarify what is the question here that's being asked. It's sometimes not very clear. And you can end up getting into long back and forth chats because a lot is lost in context. Another is to be comfortable being asynchronous. For us, that means just doing screen grabs of how to do something as opposed to sitting and writing a paragraph on how to complete that task. So little videos, screen grabs, 30-second snippets. Those have been tools that have really helped us build that trust, even if we're not there looking over someone's shoulder.
I feel like every meeting that I have is virtual at this point. So I do so many Zooms with customers. My customers tend to love them. I love them. I don't know. Again, I'm very sales driven, so I don't tend to ask questions on whether or not they love them, but they're always on camera. So I assume that they like them. Maybe I should ask. But do y'all happen to do Zooms? Do they tend to be virtual meetings? Do you mainly communicate via email?
It's funny for us. I think we rely less on email and are actually more present either via Zoom or whatever a customer's preference might be. And we also have this sort of rule that is unwritten, and I think I encourage everybody to kind of follow. If there is any customer engagement that has lasted more than 2 written emails or 2 Slacks or anything like that, we pick up the phone. Like, it is, you have to hear from customers voice to voice, because there's just so many things that are lost in email that are not easy to communicate in email. So I find that we're relying more on picking up the phone or having Zooms with customers.
Karina, I like that one. That is a really good, really good rule. I just was having a conversation with one of my sales reps the other day where I was like, hey, this needs to be a phone call, but I don't have that actual rule or like guideline. I just knew that it needed to be a phone call. And I think that that's like an unspoken guideline that just needs to be spoken out loud. That's amazing.
Yeah, Karina, we've actually seen some really good success on calls where it's gone on back and forth, especially if there's like some sort of bug and there's engineering involved as well. And I was like, let's cut it off. In 5 minutes, we usually can figure out what's going on as opposed to a full day of back and forth messages. So it's a really good idea.
Plus one to all of that. I couldn't agree more. I think the other element of building trust is just being totally honest. Like, I had to call a client last week and just say, I am not in a legal role. So this contract and the jargon that we're using, this is like totally new and different to me. So just bear with me as we were kind of working through a contract and supplier onboarding and all of those things. And the point of contact was like, Janelle, neither am I. Like, it is like, we're going to make this work. And just being able to hear her voice and like reaffirming that this isn't either of our sweet spots, but we're going to get through it together. You can't duplicate that over Slack or over email when we're actually trying to hash out really specific logistics. And so plus one to just getting on the phone and hearing, and you can hear that empathy and that honesty and that it's so much faster, so much more efficient. So couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, it is now 11:29, so I think we're right at time. Thank you all so much for taking the time to come out today. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to all of our virtual participants and our in-person participants. Thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you to our host.
You do my job for me. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. And I want to remind everyone that Startup Week, we are on day 3 and we are taking place hybrid. So come on down to the CIC in Kendall Square and come on down to the Seaport. We are here at District Hall. Coming up at 11:45, all day we've been talking about customer success, how we build the